Good day, grade 3 learners. Welcome to today's English lesson. My name is Erica Gura, and this lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Sci-Bono Discovery Centre and broadcast by Pakama Research and Development. Let us begin. English Home Language, grade 3. Our knowledge area is listening and speaking. And our topic is listening to a story. Subtopic, comprehension. And I am the presenter, Erica Gura. Our lesson objectives for today. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to listen to a story without interrupting, showing respect for the speaker, answer questions on what was heard, and enjoy and comprehend a fictional text. Our pre-knowledge is grade 2, fiction and non-fiction, answering questions as your comprehension develops, thinking and writing skills, and knowing what characters of stories are and what a setting of a story is. Let us begin with our story today. This is the story about Fox and his family. There you can see the fox with his family. One morning, Fox woke up really hungry and he planned to find a delicious breakfast for his family. He said to his children, "We will have eggs for breakfast today. I will go and find some eggs." So he went out looking for birds' nests. He saw an eagle's nest right at the top of a tree. Can you see that big tall tree there? The eagle was in a nest right at the top. How can I reach those eggs? He thought. It's so high up. He thought about it for some time and then he said, "Ha ha! Now I have a plan." What do you think his plan was? Let us see. He put some long grass stalks into his ears and he knocked on the tree with them. "Give me an egg," cried the fox. "If you don't, I will knock this great tree down with these grass stalks." The eagle was so frightened and immediately gave one of her eggs to the fox. The fox was not satisfied and said, "Get another egg down for me at once." The eagle replied, "But one egg is enough. I shall not part with any more eggs." The fox again said, "Get me an egg now, or I will knock the tree over with these grass stalks, and then I will take all." The eagle was very frightened and she gave away another egg. The fox now had 2 eggs. Then he laughed and he said, "You foolish bird! How could I knock down a great tree with these small grass stalks?" The eagle lost her temper and she swooped down from her nest and she grasped the fox with her talons. That means very sharp claws. And she lifted him up and she flew with him far out to sea and dropped him on a lonely island. The fox asked himself, "Am I going to die all on my own here on this island? My children must be waiting for me. I need to escape from here." Then he began singing softly, la 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 la. And all around him he saw seals. Have you seen seals before? They live at the sea and they come out onto the beach and the rocks. And then he saw walruses. Look at those huge mammals. They are big and fat and they have got long teeth sticking out. and along came lots of crocodiles. That's a big reptile, a crocodile. He looks rather scary, doesn't he? And along came some porpoises. A porpoise is a big mammal that lives in the sea, similar to a dolphin. And along came some whales. The whales are the biggest animals in the sea. What are you singing about? Asked the sea animals. I was wondering whether there are bigger animals in the waters of the sea or on dry land. Certainly, there are much larger animals in the sea than on dry land, replied the sea creatures. Well, then, prove it to me, said the fox. Come up to the surface of the water and make a queue. So the surface of the water is where you can then see them right at the top of the water. And he wanted them to all stand in a queue like we do when we go to the shops. Then I shall be able to count you and see how big you are. So all the sea creatures, the walruses, the porpoises, the crocodiles, and the whales came up to the surface of the water. They formed a queue just like he asked, and it looked like a raft-type structure. A raft is like a boat that floats in the ocean. And it actually reached all the way from the island to the mainland. This was what the fox wanted. Can you guess what he did? He ran over their backs all the way back to the mainland. When the fox reached the last animal, which was near the mainland, he jumped ashore and he hurried home. The end. What did you think of that story? I hope you enjoyed it. Let's review some of the words about stories which we need to understand. We need to know what the word characters means. Characters are the people or the animals that are in the story. It's what the story is all about. They are the ones that speak and do all the actions. What is the setting of the story? The setting means where does it take place? Is it on an island? Is it in the forest? Are there trees? Is it in someone's house? Is it in a fairy princess castle? So that is the setting. It's the place where everything takes place. And then an important word to know is recall. That means, can you remember? Can you recall what happened in the story? So if you listened very carefully, you will be able to recall. And then an important word is moral. What is the moral of the story? That means, what can we learn from the story? Can we learn a lesson from the characters who were in the story, the things that they did? Can we learn something for our lives? Do you also know the story of the ugly duckling? That's a famous story. And the story tells of a plain-looking little bird, the ugly duckling, who was born in a barnyard. A barnyard is where all the animals are on the farm. And his brothers and sisters, as well as all the other birds and animals on the farm, tease him for being plain and ugly. He has very brown feathers, and he's not very good looking. So he runs off to live with a flock of wild ducks and geese until hunters shoot down the flock. Alone again, the ugly duckling finds a home with an old woman, but her cat and hen also tease him, so he doesn't stay there very long. In his wanderings, the ugly duckling comes across a flock of migrating swans. Migrating means they go from one part to another. Usually when it gets very cold, then they fly to a warmer place where they can find food. And he wishes to join them, but he can't because he's too young and he can't fly well enough. Shame. When the ugly duckling goes to the swans, he's happy to find, though, that they accept him and treat him like one of them. So they say, "You're okay, you can come and join us." And when he looks at his reflection in the lake, that's when you can see yourself in the water, he realizes to his surprise that he's matured into a beautiful swan himself. When the swans fly off from the lake, he spreads his wings and he joins them, finally having found a family who accepts him. So we can also understand some of the words from this story, The Ugly Duckling. Who was the main character of the story? Yes, it was the ugly duckling. That was the main character. And what was the setting of the story? You could say it was in the countryside, near a lakeside, started in a barnyard where all the animals live. And can you recall, that means remember, what animal the ugly duckling became? Here is a clue. If you look at that picture, can you see? It is a beautiful swan. Here are some important questions. How do birds like chickens and ducks and eagles and swans have babies? They lay an egg, and it has a hard shell on the outside, and the mother sits on the egg inside a nest, keeping it warm. It grows slowly for weeks, forming its bones and its muscles and its feathers. And then when it is ready to be born, it breaks the shell from the inside with its beak. Isn't that amazing? You can imagine how happy the mommy bird is when her birds hatch. That means when they come out of the shell. Just like your mommy was when you were born, very happy, except you weren't inside an egg. Now, can you imagine how sad the mommy bird felt when she had to give up her eggs to the fox? That must have been very sad. Let's have a look at our activity questions. You should be able to answer these yourself now. Let us see how well you understood the story of the fox, and let's answer these questions. Who is the main character of the story? Do you remember? Yes, of course, it was the fox. And what is the setting of the story? Well, the fox lived outside among some beautiful trees, and there was a lake, and he was looking for food in that setting. Name 3 of the animals which live in the sea. Can you remember them? We could say a walrus, we could say a porpoise, we could say a whale, and we could also say a crocodile. Do you think that it was right or wrong for the fox to take the eggs from the eagle? What do you think? I think it was a little bit unfair, because that eagle must have been very sad because it was her babies. And why do you think the eagle was so upset to give up her eggs to the fox? Because they were her babies. She wanted them to hatch out and become her children. But then she had to give them away. Let's have a look at our summary. The fox was quite greedy, don't you think? And tricked the eagle into giving him eggs. So greedy is when you want more and more. And that's not really a good way to live. And if you trick somebody, you are playing a trick on them. You are making them give you something that they really shouldn't. These were her babies after all. So she became quite angry. And then what did the eagle do? She punished him by taking him to an island. He then thought of a way to trick the animals that were in the sea, remember? So he tricked the eagle and then he tricked the other animals. So he was quite a sly, clever fox, wasn't he? He was very tricky. He was able to come up with ideas to get himself out of trouble. And he tricked those animals into helping him get to the mainland again. And he said they must all queue up. Remember what it means to queue up? To stand one behind the other. And they came up to the surface of the water where you could see them. So the surface is right at the top of the water, the surface. And then he was able to count them. But instead of counting them, what did he do? He jumped across their backs and was able to get to the mainland. Perhaps he had learned a lesson. What do you think? And can you also think, what could the fox rather have done instead of stealing the eagle's poor eggs? Maybe he could have gone to find something else to eat. Maybe you can think of what a fox likes to eat out in the forest. And then a very important question is, do you think it is a good idea to play tricks on people? I'm sure you've had a trick played on you before, or maybe you've played a trick on somebody else. Just remember to always think about other people's feelings. Will they be hurt? They could be hurt physically, like maybe they fall down if you take their chair away from them, or they could be hurt in their heart, or perhaps they could be embarrassed, which is also not a very nice feeling at all. Or maybe they will just feel plain bad. Then we shouldn't play tricks on people at all. So, do you think it's a good idea to play tricks on people? Think about that for a while. If the answer is yes to any of those questions, like hurting people's feelings or making them embarrassed or making them feel bad, then don't do it. In our next lesson, we are going to think about words that begin with the str blend, S-T-R. Can you think of any words with S-T-R? That's what we are going to learn in our next lesson. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this lesson. Please remember to sanitize and always wear your mask. Maintain social distancing and keep safe. See you next time. Bye-bye.